Please turn to page 17 of Romeo and Juliet and follow along. Hit pause as you need to so that you can copy down annotations. I'm going to read a lot of this, but I'm also going to paraphrase and skip around a bit too. So again, hit pause as you need. Montague will start us off. It's just Montague, Lady Montague, and Benvolio. Montague says, "Who set this ancient quarrel new abroach? Speak, nephew, were you by when it began?" And here Benvolio does a nice recap of everything that just happened. And Lady Montague follows this by saying, "Oh, where is Romeo? You saw him today. Right glad I am he was not at this fray." She's relieved to know that Romeo was not there, so he didn't get hurt, and he didn't make matters worse, because it sounds like Romeo may have a bit of a temper. Benvolio then explains what he saw today when he saw Romeo. "Madam, an hour before the worshipped sun peered forth the golden window of the east, a troubled mind drave me to walk abroad, where underneath the grove of sycamore trees, that westward rooteth from the city side, so early walking did I see your son. Towards him I made, but he was ware of me, and stole into the covert of the wood." So Romeo ran away. He saw Benvolio coming, and he ran away. It says it right here too, "Gladly fled from me." Montague says, "Yeah, I've seen this before. Many a morning hath he there been seen, with tears augmenting the fresh morning dew, adding to clouds more clouds with his deep sighs." Skipping down, he says, "Away from the light steals home my heavy son." Yeah, his son is actually, Romeo is running away from the sunlight. He closes the windows, pens himself in his room, sits in the woods covered. He doesn't want to see the sun. He stays away from the light because he's so heavy. And these are opposites, light and heavy. Get it? Hold that thought. There's going to be more opposites to come. Problem is they don't know why he's acting this way. Benvolio says, "My noble uncle, do you know the cause?" Montague says, "I neither know it nor can learn of him." "Well, have you importuned him by any means?" They have no idea why he's acting like this. So, luckily for them, Romeo comes in. Just so happens to enter the scene. So he comes on from stage right or left, and Benvolio says, "See where he comes? So please you, step aside. I'll know his grievance or be much denied. So leave it to me, Montague. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to go talk to Romeo right now." So Montague and Lady Montague leave. It's just Benvolio and Romeo on the stage. Benvolio says, "Good morrow, cousin." And Romeo says, "Is the day so young?" Benvolio says, but new struck nine. "Ay me, sad hours seem long. Was that my father that went hence so fast?" "It was. What saddens lengthens Romeo's hours?" "Not having that which having makes them short." "In love?" "Out." "Of love?" "Out of her favor, where I am in love." So Romeo is clearly in love with someone who doesn't love him back. And we don't know who it is because he just says her. So we have to figure out what this is going to be all about. Your first guess may be it's Juliet, but hold that thought. No proof of that quite yet. Didn't mean to rhyme. That was just the first time. Benvolio feels bad. "Alas, that love so gentle in his view should be so tyrannous and rough in proof." And here we go. Romeo, watch what happens here. "Alas, that love whose view is muffled still should without eyes see pathways to his will. Where shall we dine? Oh me, what fray was here? Yet tell me not, for I have heard it all. Here's much to do with hate, but more with love. Why then, O brawling love, O loving hate, O anything of nothing first create, O heavy lightness, serious vanity, misshapen chaos of well-seeming forms, feather of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health." You get the idea here. These are opposites: loving hate, brawling love, heavy lightness, serious vanity, etc. Feather of lead. This is called antithesis, right? It is the literary device of using opposites. When you think about it, it makes sense. We've got the Capulets, we've got the Montagues. They hate each other, right? But Romeo and Juliet, they love each other eventually. So you've got a love coming from your hate, and those are opposites. So it makes sense that Shakespeare would emphasize the point by putting antithesis into his writing. And we have to be on the lookout for the many, many, many ways that Shakespeare puts antithesis into his writing. Benvolio feels bad for him. He would rather weep for his cousin. Romeo said, you'd rather cry? What would you cry at? And it's really interesting how the rhyme scheme goes from one line to the next line, but still the rhyme is maintained. So listen to this. "Good heart, at what?" "At thy good heart's oppression." "Why is love such transgression? Grief of my own lie heavy in my breast. which thou wilt propagate to have it pressed, and so on and so forth. We have rhyming couplets all the way down for the most part. And Romeo again sadly just says, farewell, I'm out of here. And Benvolio and Romeo just kind of go along here, and Benvolio's trying to figure out, what is it that you love so much that's making you so sad? And Romeo finally admits, in sadness, cousin, I do love a woman. I aim so near when I supposed you loved, a right good mark, man, and she's fair, I love. A right fair mark, fair cuz, is soonest hit. So Benvolio says, what's the problem? You guys are in love? This is what's keeping you? Read carefully. Well, in that hit you miss. She'll not be hit with Cupid's arrow. She hath Dane's wit, and in strong proof of chastity well armed, from love's weak childish bow she lives unharmed. So this woman this girl that Romeo loves has taken a vow of chastity, and it means that she will not love for her entire life, not physically, not emotionally. She has taken a vow, and it's confirmed here, right? Benvolio says, then she has sworn that she will live in chaste, chastity, not love. Romeo says, she hath, and in that sparing makes huge waste, for beauty starved with her severity cuts beauty off from all posterity. She is too fair, too wise, wisely too fair, to merit bliss by making me despair. She has forsworn to love, and in that vow I live dead, that live to tell it now. So live, dead, antithesis, opposites. It's also foreshadowing, because we know that he is going to be dead by the end of the play. The scene goes on, there's back and forth. Basically, Romeo says, I don't think you're going to get me to change my mind. And they leave. And a new scene takes place. Act 1, Scene 2. Finally, we're done with Act 1, Scene 1. And in Act 2, Scene 2, we have Capulet, we have Paris, and we have a servant. So Capulet is Juliet's father. Paris is a noble person. He's related to the prince. And it turns out that that Paris is interested in being a suitor for Juliet, which means he wants to marry Juliet. But listen to their dialogue carefully as it starts around here. Paris says over here, but now, my lord, what say you to my suit? Capulet responds, but saying o'er what I have said before, my child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride, ere we may think her ripe to be a bride. That's right, she has not seen the change of 14 years, which means that Juliet is 13 years old. A little on the young side to get married, but Paris follows us up with younger than she, your happy mother's maid. Okay, good for you, buddy. But Capulet is going to say, we're going to actually take things real slow here, buddy. My daughter's not ready to get married. I know people get married young in the year 1594, but we're not doing this. However, there's going to be a party tonight. Let's have a party tonight. You're on the guest list, and we'll see what happens. Maybe you and Juliet will hit it off, and we'll see what happens. So what does he do? Capulet turns to a servant and gives him paper. The paper is the invite. It is the guest list. And he says to the servant, Capulet says, go, sirrah, trudge about through fair Verona, find those persons out, whose names are written there, and to them say, my house and welcome, on their pleasure stay. The servant's job is now to walk around town, find the people on the guest list, and tell them there's a party. Only one problem. This servant cannot read. Okay, it's him trying to read is like a painter using the net of a fisherman, right? So he has to go walk around, and hopefully he must to the learned, which means I got to find somebody smart here who can read. And guess who shows up? That's right, Benvolio and Romeo just happen to be going by at this time, and they're still talking about love and all the giddy stuff about I need to find the woman I love, blah 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 blah. And then he gets interrupted because he sees the servant and says, good evening, good fellow. And the servant says, good evening, can you read? Romeo says, I can read my own fortune, and it's miserable. He's very sad. But the servant persists. Could you please try reading this piece of paper, right? Gives him a little bit of a hard time, but eventually he reads off the guest. And on this guest list are a whole bunch of names that you probably don't recognize, but there is this one name that I'm telling you right now we should pay attention to, and it's Rosaline. Romeo ends reading the guest list and says, a fair assembly, whither should they come? Then there's this very funny back and forth between Romeo and the servant as Romeo tries to figure out who this person is and where the party is. Eventually, they figure out that it is at the Capulets' house and that this Romeo is welcome to come as long as he's not a Montague, and then the servant leaves. This is where we learn who Romeo really loves. Benvolio says, "At this same ancient feast of Capulets sups the fair Rosaline, whom thou so lovest, with all the admired beauties of Verona. Go thither, and with unattainted eye compare her face with some that I shall show, and I will make thee think thy swan a crow." In other words, let's go. Benvolio's pumped. We're going. We're going to see lots of girls, and you're going to see that Rosaline's nothing special. Romeo is not convinced. He's like, yeah, whatever. It's impossible to see anyone fairer. One fairer than my love? The all-seeing sun never saw her match since the first world begun. This is both foreshadowing and a metaphor. Eventually, will be a character that is related to the sun, and also she is comparing, the sun to his love. The scene ends with Romeo eventually agreeing to go. "I'll go along, no such sight to be shown, but to rejoice in splendor of mine own." Well, we shall see about that.